All right, guys. So we're going to talk about World's Toughest today. Just kind of giving you guys like a little insight into preparation, equipment, and kind of what goes into it, and how we can improve ourselves, and kind of the methodology of like what I'm thinking about. Like when I come up with the training, when I come up with like we're getting to the nitty gritty of the like training now. And I know there's always concerns when it comes to like volume and how much effort you should be giving right now, and what effort what that looks like. And I kind of wanted to give you guys some direction so you guys can understand like, oh, like I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to ultras in general. So I just want to make sure you guys know that like you're going to do more volume, you're going to be putting in more work, but like those huge big efforts, or like anything beyond like what I would consider like normal training is probably not going to be done. Like we want to make sure that we're fresh on race day. We want to make sure that we feel good. So we want to make sure that we optimize training to make our bodies feel 100%. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit more.
I think I watch Mark when he's getting ready, and when he's training now, sleep, work, kids, like all that stuff. I've kind of been just like watching him and asking him like, how you feeling? How's recovery? And if he's not recovering, I'll even like throw my 2 cents in and be like, maybe you should just back off a little bit. He's pretty good about listening there and saying like, yeah, the goal, I always just remind him, the goal is to be 100% healthy on race day, more than gaining like any extra fitness or whatever. So just keep that in mind. I think that when you're training, you can say to yourself, am I building or am I breaking myself? And that's always good. If you're going out for a run or a workout, and your body's really like, if you're just getting over being sick, or you feel a sickness coming on, or an injury coming on, or anything like that, little niggles or whatever, if you can ask yourself that question, am I breaking myself or building myself? If the answer is not building yourself, then you should probably just back off. Just make the goal being healthy on race day. That's kind of the goal. So I'll go to the share screen now.
Yep.
And pull up. So go ahead.
All right. So training. Goal of our training right now. I said this kind of in the morning, and Natalie liked it. We're preparing our bodies to work really hard. So right now it was like we set up all the preparation now for our bodies in preparation for the hard work to come in the next few weeks. And in these next few weeks, like it becomes like the focus is always the race itself. Like, and what I mean by that is like, you don't want to focus on other stuff. Like you don't want to throw in a 50K right now. You don't want to throw in other races. You don't want to throw in like huge efforts or big efforts. And the reason why we really don't want to do that is because that's going to take away from your World's Toughest Mudder performance. That's going to take away from your ability to perform on race day. So when we do training in general, we're always trying to push ourselves away from homeostasis, which means, comfort. Like when we're doing training, it's like, oh, okay, we're trying to be uncomfortable now. The problem is, like, let's say you go and you do a 50K. Well, if you push yourself too far from homeostasis, your body breaks physically and mentally. And then when you try to do it again, it won't let you do it. It's going to go and try to do it, and it's going to fall flat. So if you guys follow like UTMB and like what happened this year with the Americans, it was kind of sad and pathetic. Like what happened was a lot of guys went in there and they had already ran Western States. They had already put up big performances within 2 months of UTMB, and same thing with the girls. And they showed up and they just ran flat. Like everyone just ran really, really bad. Most of them didn't finish. And it was just really bad performances. and they were all scratching their heads on social media. They're like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like, I felt good two months ago. And I was like, that was it. You gave your effort. It's done. Like, you didn't have anything else. Like, what were you thinking, that you could just come back and do these over and over and over? You can't. Like, your body, once it goes away from homeostasis so far, I always say this, when I started to train from World's Toughest last year, my body, every single time I went for a run, it literally started to panic as if I was going to go out for another 24 hours. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, it would not let me do what I usually do just in normal training, because it was so worried that I was going to do something crazy again. And that's how the body works. It protects itself.
It's the same mechanism that happens to people in like traumatic situations. So
Yeah.
I'd say if you had a traumatic like event happen to you where you were put in extreme danger, you're triggered really easy the next time anything resembles that traumatic situation. If it's a siren, if it's whatever, it'll trigger the response. And it's the body's mechanism of like, no, we're not going there, because that's where we die. Like it's to prevent danger. And then so the same thing happens in these like extreme events. So it's not the same if you're training for even a Spartan Ultra Beast. I wouldn't even consider that to be like down this line. But once you guys get in that 24-hour range and that 12-hour range, it's like you really don't need to train for enduring several hours past, you know, a normal like long aerobic
Training
effort
session, yeah.
To get gains from it. You would only gain the confidence to know that you can do it. But we can make a pretty strong argument that you don't need to do that, that you really want to save it, and that you want to make sure that your body's in 100% health. And like Mark did last year, or like he's done in a few of his ultras, come in a position to be mentally very fresh and ready for this long, you know, session of mental, you know, fortitude, and just being able to be still and calm throughout a hard effort, a long, hard effort. So yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, I think the idea there, this whole conversation came up this morning. We talked about some of our friends who are like hardcore to get on, like, gotta get in, like, we got World Toughest coming up, we gotta get in, like, you know, back-to-back 50Ks and like stuff like that in one weekend, hitting like, you know, 100K worth of mountain running. And Mark and I were like, you know, I mean, each his own, but we're a little bit in disagreement with the methodology there, with 7 weeks out from like this effort that we're like shooting for and full of. So yeah, it's just like, you know, this kind of Mark's method, I guess. It's different, but it does make sense scientifically. So.
And I always say that you want to be, you know, it's better to be fast. Like, being fast is always a benefit. Getting to a race and just saying like, oh yeah, I did a couple 40-mile efforts or 60 or 70-mile efforts. I mean, it doesn't matter, because that's not going to get you fitter.
I think it's safe to say that everyone in this group that Mark trains, that's in the group right now, and like the 2 that are not on the call, are in the know that they can handle this type of event. There's nobody here that's brand new to this. So do we need to put in an effort right now? No. Like, so, and same with training. Like, you don't need to go on a 50-mile run or like a, you know, 6-hour run. So that's the methodology there. And then I was also going to add that the same thing happens with nutrition, with the mechanism of your brain signals. It's, if people starve themselves and, you know, are without food for a long period of time, whether it's like on purpose or not on purpose, your body like starts to burn less energy. It's kind of going into survival mode. And then so when you start to introduce more food to your diet, that's why your body doesn't really need that many calories anymore, because it's learned to survive with less calories. So it's kind of like the same thing, where when you go and you dig on one of those really big efforts, it's kind of like starving yourself, and you're teaching your body like sort of to function differently. Doesn't mean you can't recover, obviously.
Yeah, but it's always
24 hours last year.
It's always,
but it just takes a lot of time to recover from that before your body starts doing funny things. Yeah. And we read all these things actually last year that were surprising to us. There were weird things like your skin starts like you know, shedding,
Healing
and doing all kinds of weird body things. So there's proof to it. It's not us just acting weak or something. There is proof to these extreme endurance events causing a lot of like weird mechanisms in your body that take several months to like sort of heal from. So on that note, we don't need to like dig into crazy efforts just to prove to ourselves that like we're capable of 24 hours. I think you guys, like I said, you've all been down that road before. So we know you're all capable. It's just a matter of feeling good and being ready. I don't know where's the sauces are. Okay.
They're downstairs.
You gotta look for them.
You gotta look for
Okay.
Oh, you
Go
can't
ahead.
find them. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the next 4 weeks, you know, the focus is we want to do combined long efforts. So essentially, we want to combine our running with our biking. Just an example, today I did 15 miles running, and then after I did a 90-minute bike ride. So it's like that's compounding efforts, and the idea is you don't want to overstress the body with more running. So you get on the bike so you can kind of add a little bit more aerobic stimulus, but you're not going to be pounding your legs into the ground, but actually strengthening your legs. So that's kind of why I like, you know, program what I do, because it makes a lot of sense. And when you're on the bike, you can easily get nutrition on the bike, and you can start practicing eating solid foods, which is very important for learning how to eat while you're running during World's Toughest in a 24-hour race. All right, so we're also going into our strengthening program, which is it's more of endurance strength. It's more body weight workouts. We're not really hitting the big weights because, you know, lifting big and heavy, it's not necessary for this kind of event. We're more concerned about having the strength for long durations and making sure our bodies are strong enough to last the entire 24 hours. So we want to make sure that that strength is more like, you know, we do a lot of bulletproofing stuff, which is what we call it. It's just strengthening, but not maximal strengthening. So lately I've been reading some stuff on strengthening programs and how to strengthen the body properly. And, you know, what they're doing, like in terms of bodybuilding and all that stuff, it's not what we're doing. It's totally different. So you kind of have to like differentiate and understand the difference. And what we're doing is we're doing endurance strengthening. So the sessions are a little bit longer. The sessions are body weight mostly. And the idea is you just want to make sure you're strong enough so you don't cramp. That's the name of the game. It's like if you're doing your calf work, if you're doing your knee work, and you're doing all these all the strengthening components to the workouts that I have. I mean, most of them are just there because, you know, you're climbing up on a wall, you have to pick up your leg. Well, you're going to be doing that all day long. It's like you're going to be doing that for 24 hours. If you're able to do it in a session, you know, that's like a half hour, 40 minutes long, then when you go into the race and you have time to spread it out and you do the same amount of reps, well, you can do the same amount of reps because you already have confidence you can do that because you did it in a workout. So that's kind of where you want the strength to transfer over from the race to, you know, from your strengthening to your race. And that's why we that's why we do the repeats with the exercise of the common movements, because you want to make sure that your body's ready to go. If you have a hip problem or something like that, it's really going to accentuate that in that 24-hour period. So we want to prevent cramping, and because we want to do that, it's all endurance stuff. All right, effort. Where your perceived effort should be in your training sessions. What's the goal of tempo and mixed workouts? Okay, so right now, our goal really is to complete all the workouts and make sure that we can finish the workout feeling confident and strong. Like right now, like for my tempos and everything, they're not as fast as they were coming into the sessions. Like before Kelowna, I was kind of going a little faster, but then I took a little downtime, and then now I'm building back up. And my sessions have taken a step back in terms of how fast I'm running and like where I am in terms of my speed. And the idea is you don't really need to dig in those workouts but you got to make sure they're faster than an easy pace, because when you're going for your race is going to be easy pace. Like what I don't want is like, I don't want you guys to think to yourselves like, oh, this is a 24-hour race. I usually run my easy runs in 8-minute pace. So because it's 24 hours, I gotta go 10-minute pace. It's like, no. Start off at 8-minute pace. Like I want you to start off at your easy pace because it's easy. Like if you're doing your long runs and we're doing our long sessions and you're hitting an easy pace and you're like, hey, this is easy. I could talk. I can. If you're finishing your run and you feel like you can turn around and do it again, if someone gave you $1,000 to do it, then awesome. That's exactly what we want, because we want you to be able to finish your run and say to yourself, oh, if someone gave me $1,000, I could go and do that session all over again. And that's the effort that you need to have in your races, because there's a difference between like trying to make yourself slow down. If you try to make yourself slow down, all of a sudden your body does weird things with your form and it's not as efficient, and like what you thought was, oh wow, now I'm really going super easy, and 2 hours down the line it's like, oh wow, this is not as easy as I'm feeling like garbage now, and I didn't even go as fast as I could have going easy. So there's no point in holding yourself back in that respect. Make sure that when you're going on your easy long runs, that's your time to experience your race pace. So you're going out and you're going at a easy effort where you can talk and have conversations, and it's not a big, like it's not a huge effort for you to talk. I mean, that's why I used it a lot, like in the last World's Toughest, to like say good job to everybody. I was like, oh, I got to make sure I'm running easy. So I'm running by everyone. And I'm like, hey, good job. Hey, how's it going? And I'm talking the whole time, because I knew if I kept talking and I kept enjoying myself and I have a good time, my spirits are going to be up, my attitude's going to be better towards this event, and I'm always going to keep myself in an easy effort. Okay, so you got to make sure you kind of like have that in consideration to when you do your runs. And the tempo and the mix, these are just to help you get into a little bit of faster running, it's so that it sends your easy pace down a little bit. So like my easy pace is when I started building up for my World's Toughest, I was somewhere around like 7 minutes, and right now I'm floating around like 6:12, 6:15. So right now it's like 6:15s are really easy for me right now, and then hopefully by the end of, like when I'm getting ready for the race, it'll be around like 6 flat or maybe a little faster. So making sure you understand what is easy for you and what you perceive as easy and how you feel as you do those easy runs. Okay. All right, so now let's talk World's Toughest. We're talking about gear, equipment prep. We create a spreadsheet to prepare your packing list, narrows down what you need and what you want to do for in preparation for this event.
And this is how we broke it down. So you can do it however it makes sense to you and packing and whatnot. But we broke it down to like an Excel spreadsheet with a tab for pit area. We also were including that we had a pit crew to take care of. So like for us to eat as well. So you can ignore like anything that doesn't apply to you. But yeah, we broke it down by pit area, gear and recovery items, and nutrition and food. And then sub categories there, which were like any kind of supplies you need, equipment and whatnot, and miscellaneous stuff. There's a lot of things that you don't think about, but like zip ties and batteries and things like that that you need on hand. So we created a list. That's something that you should do. We consulted with a couple of like, past champions and people that we figure, well, shoot, they must know what they're doing. They've done it before and won. So Chris Mendoza, he was really great. He shared his list with us, but believe it or not, as we're going to show you our list, it's like his was like 4 times as long as ours. So I find that like crazy, but it just shows that like, the preparation does actually make a big difference. So make sure you have all that kind of figured out. Figuring out your race nutrition is really important now. It's not something you want to do the week of the race, because you're going to need to put it into practice for one. You're going to need to purchase everything you need now. Some of the stuff may take a little bit of time to get here. I know for us, like whenever we want goos, gels, whatever, we have like, our stores are always sold out of this stuff out here. Sometimes we'll go and our favorite stuff is gone and it's like, oh man, there's like nothing left. It's always like that here.
We gotta start stocking up
So
right now.
we have a hard time actually getting gels out here in California. I don't know why, but ordering online is like kind of our best bet. But find out what your favorites are for the things that you must have. They are absolutely can't go without, which is your hydration mix, whatever you're going to have in your bottles, your gels, and your protein, your caffeine. Those to me are the big ones. Salt tabs, anything like that, electrolyte tablets, or some kind of like supplement. Absolutely, paramount. And then finalize your race like equipment gear that's going to carry your nutrition. So you want to make sure it doesn't chafe you, doesn't cut you, doesn't whatever. So you guys probably already know that stuff, but those things to finalize and actually have doubles of if you can. So what we did, I've done this for Mark I formulated this plan for Mark for his first 12-hour race, which was the Ultra Virus, which at first he only planned to do 50 miles of, but we actually had all this prepared. So it was like, this is what he did actually consume. He did it for Black Canyon, Arizona, and then he did it for the 24 hours in World's Toughest. Black Canyon in Arizona was the only one where the nutrition fell through and it was his worst performance. And it was clear it was 100% nutrition failure. So he basically we didn't have pit in that situation. It was like COVID related, but there basically
and here's a big lesson too. I made a big mistake with what other people were doing. And that's something you can't do. You have to do your game plan. You have to stick to your game plan. I went into mile 19 in that race and everybody was just running out. They didn't do any nutrition. They didn't do anything. And when I got there, Natalie was like, everyone's just running. They're not stopping at all. And I'm like, oh, I had like a nutrition schedule. I had a plan. And I was like, all right, I'll grab some goos. And I was standing around. She's like, they're gone. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took a bite of something and I took off. And that was a mistake. I should have stuck to my plan and have done my nutrition plan that we had set out from the onset. And that's important. Don't look at other people. If other people are stopping and eating a cup of noodle and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not going to do that for another like 2 laps. Like, why are they eating so early? Ignore them. Just do you. You have your plan. Stick to your plan.
I feel like these guidelines are pretty, I'd stick to something similar to this, if not even more. I feel like the 300 calorie per hour guideline is what you'll hear any professional athletes say. Brea, anybody, like, I mean, professional ultra runners, like 300 calories per hour is pretty standard. This is what Mark did. This is what he was comfortable with, and for sure legit. In the 24-hour race he did last year, there was not an hour where he went without at least 230 calories. So the goal is 250 to 300 calories per hour. And that goal be just through hydration and gels. So do you want to get calories in your hydration? Yes. If you have a hydration mix that you love and you're absolutely stuck on, and it's what doesn't upset your stomach and you really, really like it, and you notice that it has a very low calories, then we can just bulk it up with calories. And Mark does that. So it's just kind of figuring out your nutrition is important. So I feel like the hydration mix needs to have a combination of electrolytes and calories. So Mark does like basically maxes out on both sides of that with the tailwind endurance, which we really, really find is an excellent endurance fuel for like an electrolyte replacement beverage, and calories. Tailwind unflavored, which essentially is just kind of a sweet taste, but it's not bad. He mixes that with the liquid IV, which is a really great electrolyte combination, but it doesn't have enough calories. So in the end, he ends up getting a bottle with 145 calories in it. And then from there, we make his bottles a little bit smaller, but for the most part, every lap, he was able to consume his bottle, which was 16 to 20 ounces of the fluid we mixed. And it was a little warmer in Laughlin, which I think you may or may not have. I don't really know what the weather will be like, but we can assume that some of the hours are going to be colder than Laughlin was. Definitely in Laughlin, you guys got hotter. So we know you were downing more liquid than if it's colder, in which case your body will kind of like reject it and not really feel thirsty. I would still try to push. If you're not doing the liquid, then you probably want to do more gels. The gels, mark strategies every 45 minutes. When you add obstacles to the mix, I think that's a minimum, like 45 minutes. I don't think that you should toy around with an hour, hour and a half or anything like that. I think that you'll bonk much quicker. The energy that's quick to your bloodstream is good for what you're doing, continuing to put an effort out there. Whether it's easy or not, it doesn't matter. You're going over obstacles, so your body's going to be burning like sugar really, really, really fast. So for every 45 minutes of gel, and your bottles. Mark was getting roughly 230 calories per hour, and that wasn't counting solid food, which he started after 3 hours. He also took a protein shake every 4 hours. Protein, where did you learn that from? Who was it that you were copying on that? Because I know it was somebody big recommended to you, don't, if you're going to do these ultras, you need protein. You need protein. And Mark was just like, okay, let's try it. And so we've been doing it, and he swears by it. Started doing it in training sessions. So any of your training sessions where you do like a long run and then come back with a bike, it's great to practice nutrition, because on the bike, well, he uses the stationary bike behind us, which is nice because it's like stationary. I actually highly recommend doing some of these long efforts of 2-hour bikes and 90-minute bikes on, or longer, whatever Mark's got on your schedule. But on a stationary bike, if you can, sometimes, I know it's not like always the most fun, but for one, it puts you in this place of like misery. So you can just kind of like train yourself to just be like calm and kind of just get through it. And, it's kind of something you'll experience in 24 hours running. And then also what I really like about it is that you can practice nutrition. And that's where Mark gets so much of the food digestion process while he's exercising. It's really hard to implement that when you're running. But if you practice it on the bike, it seems to translate. Your body's just used to getting in nutrition while you're running. So this morning he went for a 15-mile run, came back and then did a 90-minute bike. And on the bike, I gave him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a Gatorade, and a banana. And it was just like, just eat, those two things he probably won't have on race day, but they will be like that, like food, so. And then sometimes we do protein shakes on the bike as well. So that way he can start to learn how to like digest and utilize protein. Solid food. So basically what we did and what we recommend everybody do is kind of have your solid food plan where you can have your pit crew, if you have a pit crew, sort of prepare small amounts or whatever of the items that you're going to consume. Or you have we did like a little shoebox type container. And in that shoebox, we had like several different food items that he could just like pick at, little paper plates of paper bowls. I had 2 or 3 things he could eat, chips and pickles and always like that. So it was just like ready. You could even have that on your table or wherever if you're getting ready and you're kind of more on your own. What I think it's a mistake to wait to have a big meal. So it's great if you could like stop and eat a piece of pizza or a taco or a cup of noodles, but also thinking like, oh, I'm going to eat at 8 p.m. or whatever it is, and pushing your body way past the time to eat. You probably should be eating like every lap or every other lap.
I would eat like, maybe like a piece of chicken or some rice or, something almost every lap, pickles, like if
it wasn't long.
Yeah. And it was just like a few bites. So just enough where I'm like, oh, I'm getting, I had a good calorie intake with the gels and with with the hydration. So when I came in, it was kind of like a bonus just to break up the monotony of having liquid food.
And sugar.
And sugar, yeah.
So getting a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat in your body when you're actually eating so much sugar is just, it'll bring your blood sugar
that's why I always
down and kind of just keep the level versus like overdoing sugar to the point where you can't take it out.
And that's why I always have the beer on hand, because like it always settles my stomach because of the carbonation, and it has hops, and the hops are so bitter that it kind of like relaxes me, and it allows me to have more sweet stuff while I'm on the course again.
So, okay. So this is our checklist, and I've for us it's much different this year. I actually have to go through and update it. But this is what we did. And so you can kind of see what items we thought were really important. So if I go to nutrition and food, I broke it down by race nutrition for Mark more, and also like the specific stuff to get that 300 calories per hour kind of met. And these things are things that you've like tested in workouts. So your caffeine, your gels that kind of don't upset your stomach, what gels are easy to get down when you have a upset stomach, what electrolytes you're going to use and how you're getting all your calories, and what protein you're liking. And like for Mark, I think pickles and pickle juice were huge, and a lot of it, like, so now we know. And then another thing that he really liked was like I made a fresh pressed juice. I think you can just kind of buy one from any juicery or something, but we did like a ginger mix in this green juice, and that actually really settled his stomach throughout when he'd come in for different fits. So excuse me, sorry, allergies are crazy. You notice here we have mimosa and champagne, none of that got cracked open. It was all what we envisioned was going to be. So the breakfast that Mark has morning of, I have the cursor over it. Bagel, he does a bagel with hummus and chicken, and that was just something, it's not something he normally has, but something I put together like as the ideal pre-race food for all the reasons. And so all we did was like bake a chicken, and you could purchase a pre-baked chicken or whatever, and we just shredded that chicken up, and I did like a plain soft bagel and put hummus on it in the hotel room and chicken, and he ate like basically 2 halves of a bagel stuffed with hummus and chicken. And the idea there is just like to optimize your calories, your protein, your fat, and just kind of having something that's not too it's pretty plain, I guess. So it's like a plain food, I guess. Some things with like too much fiber could cause bathroom issues. So if you're thinking of like oatmeal or something like that, oatmeal, like a big bowl of oatmeal might be a little aggressive on like fiber, bananas, things like that. That's a little like high on fiber. So this was a really good mix for him, worked out really well. Things like rice are good too. So if you could do some kind of mix with rice. Now just keep in mind that you're eating like what time? 10 a.m. or like 9 a.m., like 9:30, 10?
Like 9.
Yeah, you're eating like,
9.
late-ish. So it's kind of like food starts to become appealing. I would probably avoid sweet because you're going to consume so much sweet stuff after 12 p.m. So I think that's what we were thinking, and it worked out really, really well. So just a heads up there, that was the things that we worked for us. And then just to share the things that worked for Mark really well, cup of noodles, I think is pretty standard. Everybody loves that, and it worked good for him. We brought some breaded chicken. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry. So when you're saying breakfast, are you saying breakfast leading up to the morning of the start of the race? All right, cool. Or not breakfast like during the race, or both?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
What we're talking about with the bagel and hummus, that was for Mark, the leading up to the race. So that was like the day of prior to you guys starting. All these breakfast options, these are also just my notes. So these are things that we even had on hand for our family, like during the next day, when we were in the middle of our pit, like sleeping there and waking up there. And so, you can sort of ignore, not everything here was, everything that's highlighted in pink is actually stuff we think we're going to take or have with us at Alabama. The stuff that didn't get highlighted was the stuff that like didn't make the cut for like traveling to Alabama, and like stuff we didn't really like care about having in World's Toughest last year. But everything's different for every other person. Mark thought he'd want peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and didn't even want to hear peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So some things worked, some things didn't. Breaded chicken was really good. It was just like cold. It didn't need to be heated or anything, but I made it like, well, lucky for us, last year we lived close, so we got to prepare things at home and then bring them. This year we're doing an Airbnb so that I actually have time to prepare the food. And breaded chicken was really good because it's got like a, it's salty. It's got so it's got that like saltiness and protein. and flavor that you sort of crave when you're having like so much sweet stuff. Mark ate cup of noodles, breaded chicken. He had some chips, but not too much. And I think the arroz con leche, which is just like white rice we made it with almond milk and cinnamon, like pretty plain, not too sweet and not too like milky or whatever. That was his favorite thing.
We made it with almond milk. That's
Yeah.
why it was good. Yeah.
The other thing that he had was tacos and like Mexican rice. And other than that, though, those were all the foods he ate. He didn't really, I think he really dug the cup of noodles after that for the most part. So the tacos was nice though, because it was like a little handheld thing and it went down really easy. And it was just plain, like we didn't do anything crazy to it. It was just a plain taco, but it was easy to like
The meat was cut up really, really fine.
Yeah, you want things that you don't have to like chew too much because you're exhausted. So like even like moving your jaws a lot is pretty taxing and can make your reflexes like kind of want to throw up. So the more you have to move your jaw, the more you're going to want to throw up. So those are just things to like consider. I feel kind of like you guys have already done this so many times that I just want to share what Mark did because I felt like it was really successful. Most of you guys know that he kind of got down on beers like throughout the race. And so far he's done that for all his ultras and it's been really like his thing. So I think he explained why that worked out really well for him, to each his own. So if there's something that settles your stomach, makes you feel good, just that you enjoy having, why not? Like there's no rule that you can't have beer. So I think it's great. So anyway, Mark had fun. So going to gear, I think that was the thing we wanted to like touch on a little bit too, because we gotta kind of like figure out what the best things for this race are, and for the environment or the climate. Yeah, so the climate and potential weather issues and the venue itself. So I think what we were talking about, all of us seem to agree that the other people we've talked to and everything is that we can assume that there's going to be mud because I think it's something that they'll tap into. The course does have like some areas where there's, like looks like some sloppy like mud sections. And if there's any rain and in November, which there could be, I think you guys have a decent chance there could be rain, that you can assume that everything's going to be like really, really sloppy. Atlanta was cold in the middle of the night. Like it was really, really cold. It caused a lot of people issues with the chill. So same type of climate. So we can make it's 5 hours away from Atlanta. So let's just err on the side of caution for rain and mud and cold. In which case you need to have wetsuit options. So with the wetsuits, Mark didn't have to do wetsuits last year, but we have all the preparation for wetsuits. What he takes with him is a, 1.5 millimeter top and 1 millimeter bottom, which is just like a long sleeve top and long bottoms. He also has a shorty, which is 1 millimeter shorty. And then we are debating a 3 millimeter, which he has, and we may or may not bring. But I recommend you bring it if you have it, because it's worth having there just in case you need it. We also get, I think it's really important to have like the neoprene cap that you can cover your head with. Obviously, if your head's cold, then your whole body can experience hypothermia. So since you guys are dipping in and out of ice water, then your head is gonna submerge. So we definitely think the neoprene cap. Some of the things that were really nice for Mark last year were a jacket that was wind and rain proof. He also brought a Gore-Tex jacket, which is like extreme rated. So he had two. He had one for wind and rain proof, and then another one that's complete Gore-Tex, which would have been for like extreme weather. So I think that's important because water resistant is not waterproof. So keep that in mind when you're preparing for this like potentially rainy and cold climate. And I think knee pads were a game changer. I think that was an Amelia Boone thing. Mark went to like Dick's Sporting Goods and got a pair of $15 volleyball knee pads, and they were great. He had them down at his ankles for most of the race. And when he got to what is it called?
Devil's beard or
beard or
devil's
whatever.
taint, yeah.
He pulled them up so that he didn't wreck his knees, and it was like game changer. It was huge. To not, you go over and over and over again and bang up the knees, like you're going to have problems. And I think it could cause potential swelling that could cause other issues later. So we want to avoid that, and knee pads help you avoid that underneath crawls. Let's see. One thing that I think Mark does a lot different than other people is his like gear changes to freshen up. And I really think that that's like important. You know, I think rushing through your pits, that's fine. But if you take a little bit more time and you make sure that you're comfortable, you'd be surprised how far that'll go. So just to give you like some perspective, Mark had 2 shoe changes in World's Toughest. One of them was sort of a mess up. He accidentally, like he didn't plan well, and he had inserts inside his shoes that were like rugged and old. The shoes were new, but he decided to switch out the inserts. And when he did, he put old inserts in, you know, old inserts that were like falling apart, and it rubbed and rubbed and rubbed, like we're in the area where it was falling apart, and it was causing him blisters at like mile 15. So on lap 3 or 4, we had a 9-minute pit for changing his shoes, which was a pain in the butt for no reason. But later on in the race, like around mile probably like 100 or 95 or something, it was a very important shoe change. It was like, you know, got to change the shoes, got to get some fresh shoes on, and it made a world of difference as soon as he did. So keep in mind that you may need to, with this kind of weather, you may need to change your shoes like 2 or 3 times. So the terrain, from what we're hearing, is like flat and potentially muddy, but it's one of those like Jekyll and Hyde things where it's like it could be flat, fast dirt if it's not raining. But if it rains the whole entire week leading into the race, then you can expect a mud fest. That's what we've heard. But what we've heard is flat, like really flat. So flat. Not like what you guys did in Laughlin, like flat. So yeah, could be good, could be crazy, who knows? I guess you just gotta, I always feel like expect the worst, like, so we're just kind of waiting for like mud fest, you know, just to be mentally like ready in case it's a shit show. But I think it could be really, really fast too. So yeah, I think that'll be good for you guys.
For headlamps, last year mine was not that good. I used was it Black Diamond or something like that?
Well, we had our Black Diamond ones that were like okay, but they were all busted up, and we bought 2 on Amazon that were like
those
cheap,
are terrible.
and they sucked.
The one from Black Diamond though, even with the best illumination and everything, I could barely see the road in front of me. It was okay, but Trevor Psychos had this lamp that was just like, it was insane. I was like, oh my god, like he's just illuminating everything. Mark was like so excited to run with him. Yeah, I could see when I'm running with him, so I just ran with him because I was like, I could at least see the road. So he actually sent me some. It's called Slonic, and this is the
you
lamp.
can buy them on Amazon too.
And they're cheap. They're not expensive. They're like $30, and I think you get two of them in the $30. And they're really cool because they have like what is it? Where is it? Yeah, the 18 650 batteries. So this is like the ones they put in the early Teslas, like the Model S's, and then it goes right into the case right here. Its casement is really great. It's great. It's waterproof. It's like you're not going to get any problems, and you know, and the illumination factor is insane. So highly recommend this. I already tried this out on a run, and it works great. So hugely recommend that one. This is cheap and it works.
And then, so let me see. I'm just looking at the stuff that was like really important. Gloves situation, you know, depending on what you guys prefer for gloves, just keep in mind that if it's cold and wet, you're going to want something with neoprene. So that's where like those glove mitts come in. Mark actually doesn't use glove mitts, but he does have a pair of waterproof like Reebok gloves, but they are waterproof. So if he puts them on, the water doesn't like get through them, and it keeps his hands dry. I would have multiples of anything that could get wet and stay cold and be uncomfortable, so that way because you guys just remember that you have 5-mile loops and that you can always change your gear versus like the 10-mile loops where you're stuck out there for a really long time, or some other ultra type race where you're like stuck out there and it's like screwed. So
I think the most important thing about your
change of stuff,
your equipment, is to have the stuff that you need, and don't try to think about it like, oh yeah, I just need this much stuff. You can overbring to the venue, that's fine, as long as you have it. If you don't have something, well, then it's not there. You want to make this as comfortable as possible. If you're uncomfortable, like I was with my shoes for the first like 3 laps, you're going to have a bad time. I had my first 3 laps were terrible at last year's event. And then once I changed out my shoes, the next 80 miles felt great. I was like, oh, I feel good now because I got good shoes. So it's like just being comfortable makes a huge difference. And make sure that, you know, if you go out and you're like, oh man, like I'm 2 miles in, I don't feel good, like whatever is bothering me, I need more layers, I need this, I need that. Fix it when you get back to the pit. Get back to the pit and say to yourself, okay, what happened? I didn't have a head thing, I need something on my head or whatever it is. But you need to fix it, and then take your time to fix it. It's not a big deal.
If you feel it coming on, especially if it comes to like the weather, if you feel it coming on where you're like, oh, it's starting to change, I might need layers. Bring them, start them on the lap before. There's no reason to not have the layers on, you know, a little earlier to prevent any hypothermia, because if you guys wait till you're freezing and you need a wetsuit, it's not going to do the same job as it would if you put it on prior to needing it.
It's more of a preventative thing.
Yeah, be in a preventative mode. Yeah. Same thing with like wool socks, like have those things changeable and ready. Wool socks are great to keep your feet dry and warm and in a better state than cotton socks or whatever, or any kind of like, you know, other fabric or whatever. That's just something that we recommend. Same with the wetsuits, like make sure you put your wetsuit on earlier. We actually have an athlete, Alan, who is not on the call because he's in Malta, but he had an issue with a wetsuit, like just kind of getting a little like, kind of like cocky about it. He was like, oh, like I'm good, I'm not going to need my wetsuit in Europe's toughest Mudder, which just passed, and he was like screwed. Like he got to the point where he was basically hypothermic. So, and he was like, it all happened in 1 lap. It was basically crazy. So keep that in mind, especially if you're moving or slower out there. You guys calculate like, oh, I'm going to get wrecked out there. You don't want to get to the point where you're so cold that like you should have prevented it earlier. We do like, I have like a recovery kit. I have everything all ready just in case Mark needs recovery. And one of the things I really highly recommend is a blister kit. So like a needle, we do these like a towel, needle, whatever, blister band-aids. We have these like band-aids that you can buy at Target or whatever, and they go over a blister and they'll pretty much seal it up. Like it would be good. However, you have to have dry feet to put it on. If you put it on with like wet, like your feet a little sweaty, it won't stick. So in that case, I'd recommend tape. So I just bring both. I bring the blister band-aids and towels to dry them off, and alcohol swabs and wipes or whatever. And then I have tape as well, because you can just put white tape around something and at least you know that's not going to fall off. So keep that in mind. A band-aid might not do the job. Just throw some tape in there. A little tiny roll of tape goes a long way. And then we also had like
chafing balm.
Yeah, chafing balm was on him before he even left the hotel. So it's like load your feet up, like take your toes and go in between the toes with the balms, like get the bottoms of your feet, your ankle, everything. Ankle where it would rub on the shoe. You're out there for 24 hours, so the likelihood of you getting any kind of like friction type blisters is really high everywhere on your body where any friction could cause a problem. Just like if you just go preventative, so he'd come into the pit, and while he was eating, somebody would be sticking stick all over him, and that stick was great because somebody else could just literally be applying it. The other thing is we brought gloves, like, you know, rubber gloves, like what do you call those? Latex gloves. So we had a few on hand, and that was really nice because like the pit crew member can just throw the glove on, or yourself, you could do it yourself. And you could load up with like Tiger Balm, like stuff that's kind of like, you know, strong and you don't want in your hands. And then you could like massage it in really quick at a pit stop. So if you're stopping for a pit, have a glove next to the Tiger Balm or whatever kind of like, you know, Salam Pass or whatever you use, so that you can like massage a bunch of it in and not get messed up hands. So it's just like little things like that that actually made a big difference. Tylenol and Advil, I wouldn't, Mark, we feel pretty strong that like you use it only as needed and like as minimal as possible. We buy the extra strength Tylenol quick release. Those tablets are effective and they're effective quickly, which is good, and they're strong. Those I jump to first before Advil, but if you see anything that's swelling, at like 95 or 100 miles, Mark's knee swelled up. And so that's when I popped him at Advil and he was okay. And then also like, having KT tape on hand is great, but you can't stick it onto wet skin. So just make sure you have alcohol to like wipe some of your mud off and your oils so that you can stick on any tape that you need to, if you need to address any like niggles that you guys get out there. Can I use a diving wetsuit or does it have to be a special swim run? Oh no, I think most people use a diving wetsuit, right?
Yeah, I mean, swim
difficult to
runs are
run in.
nice,
Yeah.
but like, I have a nice diving wetsuit, so that's the 3-2 that I'm thinking about bringing out. So
I think
yeah,
I think you can go with
yeah,
a diving
you can use a
wetsuit
diving
if
wetsuit.
you can run in it.
Yeah,
So
I would
just
try.
bust out a test like now. And then see how, so I think what other people have done is just buy a little teensy bit big versus like a diving wetsuit, which you typically buy like skin tight, barely able to like, get over your, on your body. But you can buy a size bigger and then you'll have the ability to move in it. And I think that's the big thing. The swim runs are nice, because you can kind of like they're more flexible first of all, but you can also pull them down.
Yeah.
You can do that on any wetsuit though, just unzip it from the back and pull it off you.
Yeah, like the
If
swim
you
run
get
that I
hot.
have like it zips up in the front. So like if I wanted to like take off
open
half of
it.
it, I can take off half.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
which is
So
nice.
it's nothing.
Yeah.
But
I get like chafing on that one because it's like, I did a 40-mile run and I was like, oh, that one kind of hurt after a while.
Yeah.
But
I would say wetsuit test. We're kind of in the middle of that right now, testing out our gear, but I would err on the side of caution and just bring that diving wetsuit. Yeah. That's my
I was like a
suggestion.
20.
Yeah. And then let's see here. So I think I've gone over everything. Mark and I did a really cool like hanging shoe organizer. Bought it on Amazon. It was just like a few bucks, like $8 or something. And it was just that hanging shoe organizer. We just stuck strings around our tent and hung it up. And inside that organizer, I had masking tape on each section. And I wrote what it was. Like literally everything was in there. It was like, if I had like Goo's like hammer gel, and then I had the Goo brand gel, and I had the Honey Stinger gel, and the Big Time Caffeine gel, and I had his hydration mix, and I had his massage cream, and I had Tylenol, and I had, so that when I told the other people in our pit crew who had never done this before and have like no idea what they're doing, I would just say like, oh, go to the thing and get his gloves and his Tylenol or something. Like, well, that's a bad example, but they would just go over there and say, okay, gloves and Tylenol. And they would put it in our little bin and then they'd bring it over to them. So any type of organization, if you have one or two pit crew members who are, helping out and they have like no idea what to give you, it's much better if you can have things organized. And that hanging shoe organizer was game changer. It's awesome. So I think that is pretty much it on my end. We can also send you guys our checklist so that you can just have it and you can make your own and play around with ours and see what we brought, and probably not bring champagne and all the fancy French press coffee that no one ever made. So yeah, last year our vision of what this was going to be is he thought he was actually going to come and make coffee. So at one point he thought he was going to stop and make coffee. He said, I'm going to make the coffee. So I was like, who's going to do the coffee? He wanted to make pour over. And he literally thought in the middle of his race that he was going to be stopping at like 6 o'clock in the morning and just calculating his little pour over and starting the timer, waiting for it, sitting on his coffee. And it was not like that at all. So
yeah, by that time,
we did
everyone
have a
was like,
taco
you're
party.
losing time. You gotta go. You gotta go. I was like, oh.
I think Mark, I can share with you guys, this is funny. I'll share with you guys this. And I mean, you guys all know where Mark was in the race. You know how many miles he did, 115 miles. He, pretty much crushed it on in terms of how many laps he was able to complete. And as you can, if you were out there with him, he was pretty comfortable the whole time, but he was like gunning for it, but in like a really comfortable way. Like he said, he used talking to people to kind of gauge, to make sure he was like good. If he wasn't having a good time out there, then he knew he would be going too hard. But this pit time, I have a comparison to Trevor. So Mark's pit times and Trevor's is pretty similar to like every single other pro in the field. So Mark pitted for an hour and 50 minutes and Trevor pitted for an hour and 1 minute. So you can see where like Mark really was fat on pit times, and some of it was poor planning on our end. And I think the other part of it was that we were having like way too much fun and not really thinking about like performance, I guess. Mark did have a 120-mile goal, or 120-25. He was like really set on it. I'm going for 120, but we didn't have a calculation on it. So now we kind of know this year, we know what the pit is going to look like. However, on that note, and I just can guarantee you this is the way we're going to be. If he has a good day or a bad day, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change. We're not going to change how we are. Like there's still going to be a taco party at 50 miles and there's still going to be beer and we're still going to be having a good time. You guys are out there for 24 hours. So if you get really serious and things are like intense, it's not going to be fun. I think you're missing the point, and I think you have a better chance of performing your best if you're feeling really happy. So, I mean, I'll be out there. We have what,
a lot of people,
8 people or something coming.
Yeah.
So it kind of snowballed and we have a lot of people. I just wanted to let you guys know. I think we'll all connect, I hope, is what my vision is.
And we'll let you know what
space we are. We should be like in the front, like right where we were last year. But you guys are welcome in our pit, and you're welcome to ask me or any of our pit members. We're going to introduce everybody. And I'm going to tell anybody in my pit crew, which is like 8 people now, if it's an MGB racing athlete and they say like, oh, I'm one of Mark's like runners, our stuff is your stuff. Like you can come and you can ask us for help. I'll massage you, I'll help you, I'll do whatever. Like we're all a team and we want to be out there for you guys. So like, since we have the help, it's like, you know, tap into it if you need it. We'll gladly assist you guys. So yeah, or entertain you. You want to have a taco party. There will be tacos.
Yeah.
Or if you want to stop by and have a beer, apparently in the park or something. Do you have anything else to add on that?
No, I go the mentality going into this, like it's different than most races, because like when you do like anything like that's like half marathon or less, it's kind of like you need to be amped up. You kind of have to have your mindset is like your adrenaline needs to be high. So you need to be going into it like, okay, this is it. It's go time. It's go time. It's go time. And it's like, hoo, 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 and then you go. With this race, it's completely opposite. You need to be calm as shit. You need to be relaxed. If you go into this race at all with a bunch of adrenaline, it's like, it's just going to ruin your performance. So you need to go in there really calm and have the understanding of what the event is actually entailing. It is very difficult. It's going to be 24 hours and you don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. So just go out there and just be comfortable. And if you have that mindset, you're going to be fine. But the minute you start thinking about other stuff like, oh yeah, like I'm going to get 75 today, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's like you're going to snowball into like a bad mentality. You need to be like a monk in this one, and you need to be in a state of like meditation. So the whole time it's just like, hey, I'm going to go out here, I'm going to see how I do, and you know, if I feel good, you know, hopefully everything goes right. And then just start having fun and start enjoying yourself out at the obstacles with the people. I mean, the guys who've done it, you guys know it's a beautiful event. It's awesome. There's so many people sacrificing their time to like help you up obstacles. There's so many people there just enjoying just being there with the community. So it's a fun event. So enjoy it, have a good time, and then worry about, I say, the racing doesn't start until 6 o'clock in the morning. Once it's 6 o'clock in the morning, then you can start telling yourself, oh baby, I got 85, I got 90, I got 100 miles coming up. I feel it. Like that kind of stuff. Or grinding through and being like, oh man, I hit the wall bad, but I just got to keep moving, man, one foot in front of the other, and I just got to keep going. And it can happen to anybody. I mean, I think about like John Albin doing this event and, you know, him stopping at mile 50 because he had such bad stomach problems. and he wasn't able to continue. And I was there when it happened, and I was like, "What happened, dude? What's going on?" And he was like, "Dude, I'm wrecked. My stomach, everything's just, I can't keep down anything." And I was like, "Oh man, he's just terrible. He's just feeling like crap." And he started throwing up, and I was like, "Oh man, yeah, just take care of yourself." And then that was it. He was done for the day. And you got to kind of understand, like, that can happen to anybody. And if it can happen to John Albin, it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. So don't go in there thinking like, "Oh yeah, I'm hot and driven. Like, I know what I'm going to do." It's like, you don't know what's going to happen to your body. It could tell you no. It could tell you yes. It's like, you just need to be calm about it and be like, "Hey, whatever happens, happens. And I'm just going to have a good time and see how things go." And then as the race progresses and things start to materialize, then you can start thinking like at 6 o'clock in the morning, "Oh, this is it. I feel it. I feel a PR coming on. I know I can do this. If I just keep grinding, I can do it." And then that's when the mental fortitude comes in with, pushing yourself to the limit.
That's it. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, anything? All right, I think we're good. We're gonna have to stop
Stop sharing.
share and we're gonna stop.